Welcome to our second budget hearing. I'm sorry that there's a podium in the way. I can't see all of you, but we are thrilled to have you here. We always look forward to hearing from the public related to the administrator's recommended budget, which is what is in front of us. By way of timing, we've had one hearing prior to this at one of our meetings. This is obviously our evening hearing, and we're grateful, by the way, to the Board of Elections for housing this. So we have two budgets in front of us that we're going to be discussing tonight. One is the general fund budget, or the all-fund budget, and the county administrator will offer a presentation regarding that budget. And then secondly, we will have the MSD budget hearing. So we're going to do the county budget hearing first. So I've got speakers cards on both topics in front of me. If you would like to speak, please fill out a speaker's card and give it to the clerk, and we will put it in the stack, and I will call you, hopefully first come, first service, to the best of my ability, and pronounce your names to the best of my ability. So I appreciate your patience with me on that front. So with that, we're going to get started and turn it over to Jeff Aludo for a presentation regarding the county's budget.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to provide a brief overview to the Administrator's recommended 2026 budget. As you said, Commissioner Driehaus, this is the Administrator's recommended budget. So this budget has not yet been adopted or passed by the Board of County Commissioners. So if you're watching at home, please, if there's something in here that you take issue with, this is the administration's recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The board has not yet adopted this budget. In terms of process, I've got a very truncated version of a budget presentation that I'm going to go through tonight. I did hear that there were some folks who might be here solely to learn a little bit more about the county's budget. So if you are one of those folks who are here solely to learn a lot more about the county's budget, I apologize because we do have a bit of a Cliff Note version tonight, but please reach out to our office and we will be more than happy to sit down with you and walk through the budget in a little bit more depth and answer any questions you might have. So first and foremost, I'll just in terms of an introduction, the Board of County Commissioners under county government in Ohio, the Board of County Commissioners are the chief fiscal authority for county government. So every year, the board directs the administration to develop revenue estimates for the upcoming year, evaluate different service requests, our various statutory obligations, and develop a balanced budget recommendation for board consideration. A bit of just high-level metrics about the county's budget for 2026 as recommended. The all-funds budget, which includes almost every activity that the county does, totals $1.375 billion. The general fund budget, which is the most talked about fund in the county, it's kind of the general operating account for the county, is recommended at $402.4 million. This is an increase of $12.7 million, or 3.3% from 2025, largely due to increasing inflation, wages, various core service demands. We also face some issues with our pandemic relief funds expiring, and while we did a very solid job of ensuring that we did not program ARPA or pandemic relief funds to be something that would be required to fund ongoing expenditures of the county. Nonetheless, our pandemic relief was an opportunity to better understand a lot of the core needs and service demands out in the county. So as these funds are going away, those service demands remain. And the board has been very diligent about trying to look for opportunities and ways to continue to address those service demands, even if through creative means. The fiscal environment that we find ourselves in is one of uncertainty, based in part upon those service demands that have been uncovered and some things in the community that we know we need to address, but also various state revenue challenges, various federal revenue challenges that could pose increased risk to the general fund. In terms of our balancing approach for this budget, Departmental requests that we received mid-year exceeded our projected revenues for 2026 by approximately $60 million. So this is one of the largest budget gaps that we have seen in recent years. We did our best to reduce that gap as far as we could and close the remainder of that gap through establishing target budgets for each department, really relying upon departments and their expertise to meet their budgets and to implement programming as they see fit in accordance with their expertise, but within the constraint of a target budget. Just a little bit, if you're, again, maybe watching from home and you're not quite sure what county government does, county government is different than municipal or township government. County government operates a lot of big systems throughout our community. So counties are responsible for running elections in the county. We happen to be out at the Board of Elections this evening. We operate the county jail, perform sheriff patrols. We operate the county judicial system, common pleas court, municipal court, juvenile court, domestic relations court. We answer 911 calls. We operate the county engineer's office, so we are responsible for plowing and doing snow removal on county roads, maintaining roads and bridges on county roads, issuing building permits, overseeing public health and emergency management, operating the child welfare system, and assisting communities with their economic development and growth challenges. There is one new revenue source recommended within this budget. There is a $1 mil increase in the transfer tax, which is recommended in the recommended budget, projected to generate $4.7 million a year. This is $1 per 1,000 in purchase price of a home, roughly $250 on median home value. I recommended that, Commissioners, for two reasons. Number one was to, at the end of the day, close the gap in our budget and to balance the budget, while at the same time taking a portion of that revenue and putting it towards a consistent, sustainable solution for providing funding for affordable housing, as was part of the board's policy direction to the administration. In terms of budget trends by functional areas, most functional areas throughout the county, when we look at public safety, judicial, general government, and other functions, are relatively flat from 2025. Most are receiving just slightly more than last year, but less, sometimes significantly less than requested. Budget goals for 2026 were to support personnel and infrastructure, stabilize mandated services, and continue progress on various board policy goals. Some of the risks included in the 2026 budget, again, are reduced revenue growth. We are a county that has become much more reliant on sales tax versus property tax over the years. Obviously, departmental spending and staffing pressures. We, for the first time, are, because of some pressures in several of our levies, we are seeing cost pressures in our levies, increased costs of children in care in the Children's Services levy, increased costs of waivers in developmental disability services. That those levies are put in place to handle and to manage some significant strategic and important social issues in our community, but there are also issues that in most cases, the Ohio Revised Code requires that the general fund pick up those costs if the levies cannot. So to the degree that we continue to see cost pressures in those levies, for the first time in many years, we see some risk to the general fund, which will be outlining some strategies for the board to address before we close out this year. And finally, some federal regulatory changes. We've seen some regulatory changes in SNAP and Medicaid that will be placing some further pressures on some of our social services, some of our levies that otherwise could ripple into the general fund. So in summary, Commissioners, the budget that I'm presenting to you is balanced. It's a very modest increase to 2025, maintains a healthy reserve. It does continue modest investment in the county organization. and funds the primary mandated function of the county, although, as I indicated, sometimes at levels less than had been requested, as we heard through some of our budget presentations earlier today. And finally, does continue funding for development partnerships and other shared service partnerships with many of our local communities. And with that, Commissioner, I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. We are anxious to hear from you, Commissioners. I don't know if there are any comments before we hear from the public, or if we want to get right to it.
I'd like to get right to it, yeah.
Okay, we're all on the same page. All right, we're going to get started then. Our first speaker is Kelly Meyer. I chose an easy name to pronounce for my first try.
Like that. I like that.
Thank you for being here. You have the pleasure, by the way, everyone will have the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kelly Meyer. I am the former president of the Board of Directors for the Realtor Alliance of Greater Cincinnati. I am currently chair of the Commercial Council of Greater Cincinnati. I am also a residential and commercial realtor with more than 16 years in this industry, serving families, large and small businesses, land developers, and investors throughout Hamilton County. I am here tonight because we must say the hard thing clearly. You cannot claim support for affordability on one hand while raising taxes on homeowners and businesses on the other. Hamilton County is facing an affordability crisis, and this proposal makes it worse. Let's look at the facts. The median Hamilton County home now sells for about $285,000, up 9.6% in the last year alone, and up dramatically over the last decade. Property values increased an average of 28% in the last reappraisal, pushing property tax bills up 10% or more. This sudden rise became a real burden to all property owners who were already stretched thin. Meanwhile, home sales and the number of transactions are down. We're seeing the trend closely, or clearly. Fewer sales, higher prices, smaller margins. And yet the transfer tax revenue has gone up. Not because more homes are selling, but because fewer homes are selling at higher prices. This is the exactly wrong time to increase the transfer tax. Let me tell you from experience, in today's market, even $200, $300, $400 incremental taxes and fees can kill deals. Not theoretically, not occasionally, every week. Most Americans and small businesses live and operate on an extremely thin margin. A few $100s can make a difference or break a closing, especially for those who are at the lower end of the housing market.
Going to ask you to, the timer went off. I'm going to ask you to,
I'm sorry.
I didn't think you recognized that.
No, I didn't. I
If
didn't.
you could just please close up.
Sure.
Yeah.
We, or I, am opposed to adopting the transfer tax. Affordability cannot survive this. Our housing market can't absorb it, and Hamilton County families cannot afford the long-term consequences.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Stash Gelazinski. Ah, nice. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good evening. My name is Stash Gelazinski, and for the past 15 years or so, I've been a commercial real estate broker involved in multifamily investment sales, investment development here in the county. And I want to flag the trend that should concern everyone in the room. Businesses, small shops, mid-sized operators, and even major employers are choosing to plant their flag in surrounding counties because the math is better. It's not just income and payroll tax, it's property tax, transfer tax, total occupancy costs, the actual economics that drive site selection. For a decade and a half, I've watched the same story play out when companies compare Hamilton County to Butler, Warren, Claremont, even Columbus, Indianapolis, Northern Kentucky. The cost burden here loses the deal. Those businesses take their jobs and payroll and long-term investment with them. Here's the part that I would like to underline. This isn't just about the cost of doing business. This is the county squeezing the very engine that funds its own revenue. When businesses succeed, the county succeeds. You get more payroll, more sales tax, more commercial property tax, more restaurant and retail spending, more reinvestment in neighborhoods. When business climate slows, those revenue lines fall. It's not complicated. And this proposed transfer tax increase points the county in the wrong direction. Your own revenue data shows it. Transfer tax collections are up, but not because more people or businesses are buying real estate. They're up because fewer transactions are happening at higher prices. This means a shrinking pool of buyers and sellers carrying a bigger share of the bill. Raising the tax widens that imbalance. You're leaning on
Yep,
fewer
please summarize.
transactions while making those same transactions more expensive. That's not a revenue strategy. That's a slow motion stagnation. And the biggest risk is that every time the cost of buying or selling commercial property, you make it easier for them to choose Mason, Westchester, Monroe, etc. So I would just like to point my favor against raising the transfer tax.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Joanna Glover. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. So thank you, commissioners, for having us here today. I do have Tracy Lindstrom, our director of JFS Services, also our CEO, Raquel Howard-Smith and Nicole Williams. And we truly appreciate your continued support. Hamilton County provides funding for some of our very core programs. Francie's House, which is our domestic violence shelter. Also, we have Child Welfare Domestic Violence Connection Program, Safe Care, and Youth Prevention Services. Each of these programs play a vital role in supporting families that have been affected by domestic violence. And we also help youth to learn what a healthy relationship consists of. Our domestic violence shelter is the only shelter in Hamilton County for survivors. We provided services to over 334 adults and 296 children in 2024. Our goal is to provide a trauma-informed space where individuals and families can be safe, have dignity, and also heal while they are in our shelter. Safe Care is an in-home, evidence-based program for caregivers of young children who may be at risk for neglect or abuse. Each week, our providers work with families to strengthen parenting skills, improve home safety, and support informed health decisions, creating safer, more stable environments for children. We provided over 930 home visits in connection with JFS. Our Domestic Violence Connection Program places DV experts directly within Children Protective Services. This partnership allows us to assist over 420 individuals. They assess safety concerns, supported survivors. We held perpetrators accountable and provided families with resources they needed to move forward towards safety and healing. Through our youth prevention, we provided school-based programs to 929 in elementary and high school students. As financial strains increase across our community, the need for these services remains urgent. We are asking for your continued support so we can keep providing these essential programs and help families live free from violence. Thank you for your time today.
And thank you for what you do. And thank you to your team
Thank
who
you.
are in attendance. Thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Ellie Reeser. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you so much for your time tonight. My name is Ellie Reiser, and I have been a realtor in Greater Cincinnati for over 30 years. During this time, I have walked families through about every type of market: high rates, low rates, recessions, seller booms, buyer booms, and even though one of the colleagues mentioned that this transfer tax that's being considered might even just be adding $300 to the price of a house, that is everything to a lot of people. I know that it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's certainly important to consider in the entire picture. I want to talk about our economy today, too. We have rising interest rates, mortgage rates, rising property taxes, rising insurance costs, and rising utilities. And we see, and I'm sure my colleagues do as well, people are strapped. They are really struggling with all of these extra fees and stretched to the limit. They are clinging on to the hope of still achieving the American dream, but that dream is slipping away from a lot of folks. And I'll tell you what I see in my business. It was mentioned earlier. People are consciously deciding to avoid Hamilton County. They go to Claremont. They're going to Butler. They're going to Boone, Kenton, and Campbell in Kentucky because the overall costs are less. But when you analyze what happens with that, it actually represents lower sales tax revenue for the county, restaurant revenue, small business revenue, and a future property tax revenue are all lost when people choose to not come to Hamilton County. You lose families who might have built a life here. So with that, people feel that everything is affected by each of these decisions. And now with the proposed 1 mil increase, you're asking homeowners to foot the bill for that. We feel that it's unfair, that it's not sustainable, and it's not responsible. Respectfully ask for your consideration to not move forward with that. And we'll work with you in other ways at all times. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Our next speaker is Heather Kopf. There we go. Welcome back. Got the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you. And I will try to be brief. I appreciate you guys meeting with us. I know that balancing the budget is a difficult task, and we respect that. I am Heather Kopf. I'm chair of the Advocacy Committee for our Realtor Alliance, representing over 6,500 real estate professionals, as well as the thousands of residents that we serve. I shared my concerns last week about the negative impact of decreasing the promised property tax rollback. And I'm here again to share very pointedly that the proposed transfer tax increase is unacceptable. It was shared last week that it was irresponsible for the prior county commissioners and administrators to ever have promised the 30% property tax rollback to the residents. We would counter that it is equally, if not more irresponsible, for the current county administration to continue to put the burden of balancing the county's budget on the backs of homeowners. Homeowners have just endured the historic property tax hikes, significantly reduced rebate, and now you are considering yet another tax layered on top. As you've heard, people are stretched thin, and the county's response is to ask for even more. It just simply is unacceptable. I'm going to share 2 quick examples in real time. We have a client who moved here to Cincinnati from Denver. He paid less in property taxes on his $1.2 million home in Denver than he does on an $800,000 home here in Hamilton County. That should alarm everybody. Also have another client who moved here from Louisville, a similar Midwest metro city. He was looking at properties here in Cincinnati, and he was astounded by the property taxes in Hamilton County, and therefore moved out to Warren County, where it was more palatable. At the end of the day, this is a pattern. It's alarming, and it's growing. If Hamilton County wants to grow, we must be a place where people want to move. And right now, our tax environment is telling them to look elsewhere. Our Realtor Association has offered opportunities to discuss alternatives to placing the burden on homeowners. We have grants and resources to help identify real solutions that are not simply raising property taxes. And we implore you to work with us to find more responsible solutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amber Mallet. Hello.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Amber Malott. I'm the Vice President of Programming for Women Helping Women. We are the largest provider of best practice teen dating violence and sexual assault prevention programming in the region. For years, we've partnered with Hamilton County to make prevention education accessible to all students, and the impact has been remarkable. In 2024, we educated 1,724 Hamilton County students with programming, and this year we're on track to match those numbers, having already served over 1,500 students from Hamilton County by the end of November. This work is critical. Violence in Hamilton County is on the rise. Just last week, our CEO and President, Kristen Shrimplin, highlighted alarming trends. Divert responses are increasing. Lethality indicators like strangulation are becoming more prominent in the families that we're serving. More threats are involving firearms, and children are being exposed to this violence. So these statistics underscore the urgency not only to respond to prevent violence. The average cost to intervene and support just one survivor is $103,000. In fact, the amount it would take to help only 4 survivors after experiencing violence is the same amount we're requesting to prevent violence and educate more than 1,500 Hamilton County students. Here's what we know about our data-driven prevention programming, according to our Q3 report. 95% of students understand consent. 95% learned how to establish healthy boundaries. 97% can distinguish between healthy and unhealthy relationships. 92% feel confident activating bystander intervention skills. Quotes from students: "I learned the abuse I went through was never my fault. The most helpful topic was learning how to say no and that it's okay to be uncomfortable." These voices remind us why this investment matters. Women Helping Women urges the county to continue funding prevention programming with minimal disruption. Together we can achieve a strong return on investment, empower teens, foster healthy relationships, and break cycles of violence to build healthier communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Felicia Bell. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Felicia Bell, and I am the incoming president of the Greater Cincinnati Realtors Association, a voice of Black real estate professionals committed to democracy and housing in Hamilton County. I am here tonight to say as clearly as I can, this transfer tax increase has a direct impact on the equity of Black homeowners and Black-owned small businesses in this county. The numbers are stark. In Hamilton County, the homeownership rate for white households is about 70% and 33% for Black households. Nationally, nearly 46% of Black households own their own home compared to about 74% of white households. So Black families in Hamilton County are already way behind locally as well as nationally. Organizations like the Greater Cincinnati Realtors Association are strong advocates to not only increase Black homeownership, but to also protect the equity of current homeowners. This increase is an assault on our effort to help level the playing field as we are promoting wealth building in the community through home ownership. This tax negates those efforts, and you are now proposing to tilt this inequity even further by raising the transfer tax from 3 mills to 4 mills, a 33% increase in the maximum allowed under Ohio law. Every time a Black homeowner sells in this county, it takes a bigger bite out of that equity. Equity which is used to fund education, pay off debt, or seed the next home. Black-owned firms are also disproportionately undercapitalized and more sensitive to closing costs and fees. This proposal hits them the hardest. If you're serious about supporting realtors, and Black-owned small businesses, you cannot vote to attack the equity these homeowners and small business owners work so hard to build and leverage to grow and build wealth in their families. On behalf of the Greater Cincinnati Realtors Association, I urge you to vote no on this transfer tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Robert Calabrese. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Robert Calabrese. I'm a local real estate attorney and board member, former president of the Commercial Realtors Council of Greater Cincinnati. We represent professionals who lease, sell, reposition office buildings, industrial parks, multifamily, retail centers, and small business spaces that keep Hamilton County's economy running. I'm here to say as clear as I can that a 1 mil increase in transfer tax, an extra $1 per thousand, is horrible for business. It's not good for Cincinnati. It's a direct hit on our regional competitiveness. Right now, we already charge $3 per thousand for our fees on real estate transfers. And the big thing that I'd like to point out is I work in Indiana and Kentucky as well. Indiana has a $15 flat fee for transfer tax, and Kentucky's only $1 per thousand. So when a business is looking to buy a $10 million building, it is almost exponentially higher than in Indiana. It'll be $30,000 on transfer tax here on a $10 million building, which is now increased to 40 with the proposal. In Kentucky, it's only 10,000. So that is a big difference on the bottom line. Us being three times more expensive than Northern Kentucky, which is just right over the river, is just not acceptable. To be 4 times more expensive. The money doesn't come out of thin air. It comes out of tenant improvement budgets, capital for upgrades, small business expansion, and jobs. For small business owners, the people that are buying a neighborhood warehouse, a strip center, an owner-occupied office, it's not a rounding error. It's the difference between doing business in Hamilton County and doing business in Boone County. It's the difference between rehabbing an older building here or just walking away entirely. Transfer taxes are the worst kind of revenue. They're volatile and transaction dependent. When you tax transactions, you just get fewer transactions. So it's not going to increase your overall budget. And fewer deals mean fewer renovations, fewer construction contracts, lower sales tax and income tax downstream, and less long-term revenue. The policy is short-sighted and self-defeating. On behalf of commercial real estate professionals who are trying every day to keep buildings full, reuse obsolete space, bring investment to Hamilton County instead of losing it to our neighbors in Indiana and Kentucky, I urge you to vote no for the transfer tax increase. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kevin Donnelly. Good evening.
Good evening, County Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about Ready Cincinnati's work. I'm Kevin Donnelly, Vice President of the Project Management Team for Ready Cincinnati. Since Ready's inception 11 years ago, we've had the privilege of working closely with Hamilton County and our partners at Alloy Development Company. Over the past 5 years, Ready has helped source 165 new project expansions and over $1.4 billion in capital investment in Hamilton County. This translates to over 9,000 new jobs, amounting to $630 million in new payroll. The average wage for those jobs breaks down to just under $70,000 before benefits. These companies also represent over 17,000 retained jobs. In addition to our work in attracting companies from elsewhere and around the globe, Ready has a substantial existing industry program where we partner with Alloy Development, our local economic development partners, and have conducted nearly 1,000 business retention expansion visits in the county to ensure we're keeping our finger on the pulse of industry. In 2025 alone, we've closed 19 projects in Hamilton County, representing over 1,200 new jobs in the county. Some notable wins this year: Great Day Improvement, Standard Arrow, Forest Fair Mall redevelopment project, Hillman, and Givaudan's expansion in Reading. But the work we do reaches much farther than these large traditional economic development projects. And year to date, we have helped 9 small businesses in Hamilton County grow, creating 30 new jobs, $2 million in new payroll, and $2 million in investment, with $350,000 in grant support. These types of grants are transformational for small businesses. And in the past 5 years, we've helped create 400 jobs and $23 million in just small businesses. Ready Cincinnati has demonstrated proven success, and our partnership works here in Hamilton County. I firmly believe that economic development helps to power communities through difficult times. Adding new jobs and capital investment into our region directly supports the county and improves the lives of residents. Thank you for your continued support of our organization, and we look forward to 2026.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dusty Bryant. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dusty Bryant, the Director of Workforce Innovation and Sustainability at the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio. I'm here today to respectfully request $250,000 from the Hamilton County budget to support the administrative costs of our Building Futures Apprenticeship Readiness Program. Building Futures is not just a training program. It's a lifeline for residents who want to change at a better future. Every graduate represents a story of resilience and transformation. Your investment funds the people and systems that make this possible. The coordinators who guide participants, the accountability structures who drive success and the critical outreach that opens the doors for women and justice-involved individuals. Since March 2024, Building Futures has achieved a 97% graduation rate and 88 graduates. Our sixth cohort will graduate on January 27th, 2026, with 21 participants. Our graduates enter registered apprenticeships in 15 skilled trades affiliated with the Cincinnati Building and Construction Trades Council, earning an average of $31.37 per hour plus union benefits and a pension, creating sustainable pathways to economic self-reliance and family stability. The return on investment is clear. For every dollar invested, more than $3 come back to the community. Graduates contribute thousands in taxes, reduce reliance on public assistance, and reduce recidivism. The annual impact per graduate exceeds $9,000. In closing, we respectfully request $250,000 from the Hamilton County budget to support the administrative costs of our Building Futures Apprenticeship Readiness Program. Thank you for your commitment to this necessary work and to building a strong and resilient workforce in Hamilton County. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is James Shapiro. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jim Shapiro. I'm a licensed real estate broker, a member of the Real Estate Investors Association, a board member of Housing Mediation Services, and a member of the city's Eviction Reduction Committee. I'm opposed to the increase on the transfer tax. I manage over 500 rental properties, all owned by small mom-and-pop investors. Most of them own 1 to 4 or 5 units. My largest client has 17. About 85% of rental property owners are small family-run operations like these, owners in their own name or in a single-member LLC. A recent study said that only 3.5% of the market is actually owned by the big corporate landlords that we hear so much about lately. But half of housing in the county is rental housing, owned by the kinds of people I work for. When you raise the transfer tax, you're not taxing Wall Street, you're taxing middle-income families who are trying to build a modest investment for their future and provide housing for people who can't afford to own their own home. When you increase costs for these small providers, they have no choice but to pass those costs on to the renters. Their margins are razor thin and all of our costs are up. Raising the transfer tax will harm people who need affordable housing and harm the owners who are struggling to provide this housing. And here's the irony. By making these houses more expensive, and these costs climb for buying, selling, and transferring, you're making it harder for the small owners to own in our community and more likely for those corporate landlords to come in. This proposal does not stabilize the rental market and help the tenants. It destabilizes it. It increases housing insecurity and increases rents for the very families who can afford it the least. On behalf of small landlords and hundreds of thousands of tenants in our county, I urge you to vote no on the transfer tax, protect our housing stock, protect the small businesses that we're talking about, and protect the renters who will bear the brunt of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mara Black. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mara Black, and I am a Realtor and the current Vice Chair of the Advocacy Committee for the Realtor Alliance of Greater Cincinnati. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have been licensed for almost 21 years, and I work with buyers and sellers of all income levels. I'd like to share a real situation from my recent work. My client, a first-time home buyer, wrote an offer on a home that was located not too far from where we're sitting this evening, that was under $175,000. The home inspection revealed multiple problems that my buyer could not afford to do after the home inspection fees, moving expenses, closing costs, title charges, and down payment. So we asked the seller to complete the repairs. After initially agreeing, the seller found that after all of their costs, repairs, transfer tax, title charges, deed prep, prorated real estate taxes, professional fees, and their mortgage payoff, They could no longer honor the repairs that they had agreed to, nor the contract. The cumulative cost of selling simply became too great a financial burden. In this example, the transfer tax would now increase from the $525 to a proposed $700 on a family where every single dollar matters. Homeowners that cannot cover these costs face two impossible choices: raise their price, potentially pushing buyers out of reach, or choose not to sell, trapping themselves financially and shrinking the already limited housing supply. A home is often a person's largest financial asset. I strongly urge you to look elsewhere for funding. Please don't place yet another burden on homeowners who are already struggling to stay afloat. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, it's Kevin. Kevin, I cannot read your last name. Kevin something Senior. Is it Scuttles? Skittles? I apologize. Scuttles. Good evening.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Look, the Building Futures program has helped me tremendously. I started the Building Futures program in March of this year. It was a 12-week course and 12-week program. And throughout that program, we learned how to do construction math. We learned how to different skills and how they apply to real life and how they apply to the jobs that we're doing. I graduated in June, I want to say June 12th, and ever since June, I've been working with Harper Company in Kentucky, and I've been pouring concrete, and it's really changed my life for the better. Like before, I was doing mom and pop jobs, just trying to make ends meet and everything like that. Like I was fresh out of college when I joined the program, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And construction was never on my mind, never, or anything like that, never something I thought I would do. But joining the program really, really, really helped me. I've been able to get myself a car. I've been able to put a roof over my head. I've helped my mom whenever I can, whenever she needs it. It's a really, really great program. Like, and the teachers and the people that are in the program, they're very attentive, and they are very, what's what I'm looking for, helpful in getting those students and those people that are in the program to the next level. Like they took their time with me and made sure that I wasn't afraid to like talk to people or get out and talk to these people that are doing the hiring and everything like that. And like I said, it's really, really made things, what's what I'm looking for? It's really made things for the better for my life. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ronnie Washington. Good evening.
Good evening. Greetings to you, chairs of the board, our honored guests. My name is Ronnie Washington, Jr. I'm a graduate of the Building Futures program. We're here to request continued funding for the program. Ever since joining, my life has definitely changed for the better. Not only the courses that I was able to learn, but the people I was able to meet. Dusty himself constantly checks on me, make sure I'm okay, make sure I'm still in work. Through them, I've gotten to get things such as my OSHA 10, my first aid, my CPR certifications, just to name a few. It's definitely made me feel more accomplished and capable. I've always wanted to do something similar to what the Urban League does, help people. I've seen people who feel hopeless and feel like they can't do much with their lives. Before I was with them, I was working a minimum wage job, and I thought I'd be doing that until the day that I pass. But now I feel and I know that there is something greater that I'm capable to do. I'm currently part of LIUNA. I'm in a union, and I have a pension. I have a good paying job and a great support system, people who are always making sure that I'm okay and I can support my mother, my two young children. I mean, not my young children, her two. And then my grandmother who's retired. And they've really just made my dreams feel like they are a reachable goal. And I feel like they can do that for so many other people. I would love nothing more than to see them continue to do great and to even reach out and become a household name that everyone knows that they can come to. And that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sandra Letty. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sandra Letty, and I've been a licensed realtor in the Greater Cincinnati area for almost 30 years and a member of the Realtor Alliance of Greater Cincinnati. I have seen this market through just about every cycle, but I can tell you without hesitation, the last 5 years have brought the most dramatic shift I have ever witnessed in buyer behavior. More and more, my clients are telling me, I don't want to live in Hamilton County. The property taxes are too expensive. 5 years ago, that was a rare comment. Today, I hear it weekly. People who work here and worship here and want to raise their families here are actively choosing other counties in northern Kentucky. And despite that warning bell ringing loudly in every sector of our housing market, you are proposing to make Hamilton County even more expensive with a $1 million increase in transfer tax. Let me be clear. This isn't just another fee. It is a decision that threatens future county revenue in ways that go far beyond real estate. When buyers avoid Hamilton County because the cost burden is too high, you don't just lose a home sale, you lose young families who put their kids in our schools. You lose empty nesters who might have downsized here. You lose people who want to invest here but no longer feel they can. This isn't hypothetical. It's happening right now in my business, in my clients' decisions, and it's in the data. And here's the part that truly worries me. Working class families already squeezed by rising costs on everything may end up needing county assistance in one form or another, whether it's housing support, food programs, child care subsidies, or senior services. Those costs don't disappear. So I ask you plainly, if you drive families out, weaken the tax base, slow home sales, reduce consumer spending, and increased demand for county services, where will that money come from? Do not make Hamilton County less competitive. Do not drive away the very people who should be the foundation of our future tax base. Do not turn a short-term revenue idea into a long-term economic crisis. Please vote no on the transfer tax increase. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Patty Hoff. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I am actually a mortgage lender. I am an affordable lending specialist. So I am a SME for a lot of organizations here in Cincinnati and in the state. What I want to talk about is the real numbers. What happens when somebody's trying to qualify for a home? I've done mortgages in 8 states. I've done this for almost 30 years. In Hamilton County and the surrounding counties, we have what is taxes in arrears. So because the seller is paying taxes in arrears, they end up bringing taxes through the day of closing to closing. That's what we call the tax aggregate, okay? Now we're going to increase the transfer tax for them. So logically speaking, economically, my degree's in economics, that's going to be passed on to the buyer. What happens in affordable lending world is that we do what is called qualified mortgages. Qualified mortgages have hard stops, okay? Those hard stops are attributed most of the time to debt to income ratios. Okay, that means no matter what a loan looks like, if it hits 45.1, it's done. Okay, so if you increase that person's payment by $10 or $15 a month because of these additional taxes, they won't qualify. $10 or $15 a month can make or break a deal in the affordable lending world. And I do all kinds of mortgages. I have mortgages that next year will be in Homerama. I have mortgages that are $70,000. I've done the whole gamut and the whole realm. I've been in processing, underwriting, closing. I've owned my own. This has an effect on buyers. It has an effect on the people that you're trying to help. It's counterintuitive. Please do not do it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tiffany Ray. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tiffany Ray, and I am a long-term local housing provider, and I'm also the current president of the Real Estate Investors Association of Greater Cincinnati. We represent hundreds of small and mid-sized real estate investors, people who renovate aging housing stock, provide the bulk of our county's affordable rental homes, and take on the financial risk of revitalizing neighborhoods others would otherwise overlook. I'm here to oppose today the proposed increase in the real estate transfer tax because real estate investors are not Wall Street funds. In Hamilton County, over 72% of real estate and rental properties are owned by small and local investors, people who own our 1 to 4 families, often in older buildings that require constant reinvestment. A transfer tax increase squarely relies on them, and it raised the cost of both acquiring and improving properties. So let me share what this really means. The average investor purchased a residential real estate property in Hamilton County sells for about $165,000 to $200,000. An extra $1 per thousand adds $165 or $220 per transaction. Investors who turn 5 to 10 properties per year, which is common for an active rehabber or investor, now face thousands of new taxes that are used to go to otherwise distressed roofs, furnishes, windows, and code compliance. Over 40% of Cincinnati's housing stock is more than 80 years old. These properties survive only because investors like myself are willing to buy them, stabilize, and modernize them. Every dollar diverted to transfer tax is a dollar not put into the lead abatement, electrical upgrades, HVAC, or safety improvements. Hamilton County already charges 3 times the transfer tax of Northern Kentucky and dramatically more than Indiana. Flat $15 fee deed. So in other words, what happens is there are fewer properties sold, raising and rising rents, smaller business investments, and we lose regional competitiveness. For these reasons, on behalf of our local housing providers and myself, I urge you to please reject this increase and pursue other strategies that do not undermine the very people rebuilding Hamilton County's housing stocks and business corridors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ben Huffman. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Ben Huffman, and I'm the Executive Director of the new Cincinnati Regional Sports Commission. I wanted to take a minute to thank you for your investment in our organization, which has already led to significant impact to our region, and we are just getting started. Sports travel, as you know, is the fastest growing segment in all of travel, has been for more than a decade. It was the quickest to rebound after COVID and continues to grow at a rapid pace, both in spectator and participant-driven events. I took this job 6 months ago to start winning for Cincinnati after decades of losing to our neighbors in Indianapolis, Columbus, and Louisville. Watching sports tourism dollars flow into those communities and out of ours for the first 19 years of my career. The winning has actually already started. In 6 months, we've worked with various partners to recruit multiple events to our community, hosted thousands of people at the banks just a couple weeks ago for the U.S. Stein Holding Championships, and booked 3 large events to our new reimagined convention center, a U.S. Fencing National Championship in February, a girls' youth volleyball tournament in March, and we just finalized a contract Friday to host a massive girls' basketball tournament downtown in the middle of July. This event will actually be played throughout the county in a variety of venues, but focused at the convention center. These 3 events alone will drive more than $6 million and 10,000 hotel room nights to our community. On top of these secured events, we continue to push Cincinnati and Hamilton County forward with the 2031 Rugby World Cup and 2031 FIFA Women's World Cup bids moving past the first round into the next set of cities. My first few months, I've seen a desire from our community to show the world what we have here, improve the lives of our residents, and be proud of what we have. This is true from our elected officials, our corporate partners, our hospitality community, and all of us that live and work in this great county. So thank you for your assistance in allowing us to promote this great place. The funds we receive from Hamilton County go solely into event recruitment and operations. They will return more than tenfold in the impact to the region. The spend from the three events I mentioned will generate $468,000 in sales tax. That doesn't include lodging tax fees or parking that they also generate. I want to thank you for helping get our organization off the ground, but I also would like to request the opportunity to continue the funding to grow what we are already building. Thank you so much for your time and look forward to helping us grow.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is Melissa Johnson. Good evening.
Good evening. It's good to see you. This Melissa Johnson, Senior Vice President of Real Estate Strategy at the Port Authority. We thank you for your opportunity to provide comment as part of the 2026 budget hearings. The port has a long-standing relationship, being an extension of your economic development goals and strategies. We recognize the difficult choices before you this year as service demands increase among growing economic uncertainty. Having an economic development strategy that is site-ready continues to be more important than ever, enabling local governments to create certainty where there is uncertainty. The administrator's recommended budget suggests reductions that greatly impact the port's ability to carry out the work the county has entrusted us to do. The port's operating allocation is recommended to reduce to $750,000, with site readiness funding being reduced from $750,000 to $375,000. We understand fiscal constraints. We're often challenged in our own creativity at the port for our work, but at the same time, these reductions significantly limit our capacity to prepare sites that can attract investment and growth. We've achieved a lot with your support, and in 2024, that support helped us leverage $36.7 million in state brownfield funding, acquire the historic and iconic Crosley Building in Camp Washington, which is a neighborhood most notably driven by manufacturing and job creation. Most notably, we directed your funds to support the site preparation in the city of Reading for an acquisition by Givaudan. It's notable to mention that this investment by the company is the largest of their history. They're an international food and flavoring company, investing $215 million on the property. It's also worth mentioning that this investment, it represents only about a third of the real estate, presenting an opportunity for their expansion and continued growth. This property also, and their investment also represents $800 per square foot in an industrial real estate investment, which is about 7 times an average industrial opportunity investment in Hamilton County. So the benefit back to the county will be substantial, and we think continuing to fund site readiness will be an opportunity to continue to attract these types of companies and investment. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the last speaker's card I have regarding the Hamilton County budget. So we are going to, in that case, move on to the MSD budget hearing, unless there's anybody else that wanted to speak to this. Oh, yes, sure. Yeah. All right, we're going to move to comments. Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for coming out. I know how important it is to all of you and also to myself. I want to make it very clear. There's no doubt that all these agencies and the realtors, all the groups that came tonight are doing a fantastic job. I have no question that you're doing great work. I want to also say my focus is to give back, not to take away. And that's how I'm looking at the budget. The property assessment that was done by the state. So you need to know that we didn't do it. It was a crazy assessment. It made no sense. It was nonsensical. That's all. I'll leave it at that. And I am also a property owner, and it just didn't make any sense. But what I want all of you to know, the children's levy, the senior levy, indigent levy is in trouble. It's in trouble. And it was said earlier by administrator that prices are going up, providers are going up, the senior costs are going up. There's more seniors. We're in trouble. We don't know when the children's levy comes up next year, whether or not it's going to pass. But I will say this, for the PTR that we had debated and talked about, we really, I really wanted to give a 30% PTR. And that would have cost the budget $34 million. $34 million. We gave 4.5 PTR, which we really didn't have. But I wanted to give something. Now, it's really ironic for me when I was reading all my information about the budget, JFS is projected to have a $34 million deficit, the same thing. And if they have a deficit, that means that the general fund would have to undergird what they can't pay. So right now, JFS is looking at cuts. almost $34 million worth of cuts, and it will break your heart to see what they're considering to cut, but they have to. We have to be able to pay for basic services for all of you, and including public safety. And if we aren't able to do that, we're not only be in a deficit ourselves, but people will be unsafe. You won't have housing. You won't be able to eat. So I'm looking at all of those things. Unfortunately, everybody wants a piece of the pie. We only have one pie, and there are only so many slices to the pie. But what you can be guaranteed to know from me, that whatever decision I make, I will think about it thoroughly, research it thoroughly to make my decisions as I move forward. And then lastly, I want to say that I am not for the transfer fee. It came up as a way to generate some money, and I don't want to add any more burden on our Hamilton County residents. So wanted to make it very clear that I am not in support of that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight, and everyone who has written and sent in emails and have participated downtown at our headquarter office. The budget is the most important thing an elected official can do. It sets our priorities, and we might have differences of what those priorities are, and then we have to negotiate and see what comes out of it. My number one issue is affordability. What I'm hearing from the residents and the people out here every day, and it's not just low income. A lot of times say, oh, we're going to do this low income. I'm talking about everybody getting hit now. And the one thing about the county that's different from other positions that I've held, when you're at the city, it's a 2-year budget. When you go to the state, it's a 2-year. It's a 1 year. So it's what we do this year, we still can look at something next year. And so right now, what we have to do is look at what is the conditions right now. And for me, we've got to look at it in totality. When we come together to talk about the budget, we have a conversation that is different. When we look at stadiums, for example, and people went and voted, we say we have to keep the promise to the stadiums. But then when I say, well, what about the promise to the homeowners? They say that's irresponsible. So we can't have it both ways. And then a couple weeks ago, we had a presentation of, we paid a consultant to look at the banks. And these are all great things. And their proposal was $800 million. And I don't even know why we're looking at it if we say that our finances are in this bad a shape. But for some reason, we say, well, we can look at it. Now, they'll say these are different funds, but today it says it's all funds, and it should be. It should be all funds. Now, I'm for if we can keep the promise to the stadiums, which I disagreed with that deal. I'm just going to be honest. It was not a good deal if we're in the shape that we say we're in now, because we left out the homeowners, and we said we couldn't keep their promise, but we can keep the promise to the team. We should have said, well, team, we can't keep a promise because your deal is expiring, and we can't afford it, maybe. And maybe we got to get a different kind of deal. And I warned us of that we took out the homeowners. I warned us that the homeowners would be the losers. And so now the homeowners are the losers. Going less than 30%, your property tax bill will go up. And we can't just blame go up I-71. They do have a responsibility. But there's also a promise here. And every dime, I think somebody just gave that testimony, every dime counts. When you go to Kroger's, they say they got that little Kroger card. You ain't getting but $3 off. You want them $3 that they telling you. Every single dollar. And so right now we're in an affordability crisis. And so for me with this budget, I'm looking at it from a different lens. I want to look at it from the lens of the people who paying for it. Is this budget affordable for the taxpayers of Hamilton County? I don't want to balance our budget and then throw your budget into an imbalance. I don't want to balance our budget, keep what we got as the government, and you lose your house. We keep a stadium, but your house has been lost. I don't want we balance our budget, but you can't pay for your medicine. And so for me, how I look at it, the people that elected me, they elected me to come down to represent them. I'm not here to represent just myself. I'm here to represent my shareholders who are the taxpayers. Is this a good deal for the taxpayers? Not a good deal for all the big boys. They got their own lawyers. I'm supposed to come with what is good for grandma to keep her house. What's good for the working person to keep their house? How can I keep somebody on their job? And it's getting tougher. So it is a tough decision, but it's a matter of that. So we have, for me, it's like two different headlines. One headline comes out and says, oh, man, look at these pretty pictures on the banks, $800 million. Oh, we got to do it. The city said they should do it, and county said they should do it. And then 1 week later, we can't afford it. It's irresponsible to do 30%. And I even got blamed because I introduced 30%. You're going to bankrupt. How is the homeowners bankrupted the stadium piece, and they don't even have to pay sales tax, and it's funded by sales tax? So I believe that we have to, for me, my position is to fight like hell in this budget, comb every account we have. I don't know all of them, but we had Sundance this year. In this year's budget, we voted last year. I wanted Sundance. We voted for it. It was $2 million we found. We didn't get Sundance. Where's the $2 million? We voted for $5 million, and this is the interest fund, earnings fund. We said we wanted to do the soccer. I wanted it. We went with it. We didn't get the women's soccer. That was $5 million. So I'm looking at $7 million. Where is it? And so it gets a little fuzzy for me when we say we can't do something for these homeowners. And I'm just saying, as we move forward with everything that's going on, I think we're going to have to find a different model, because the property tax, people will lose their home. I saw an article, gentleman just down the street just in Madisonville. He has a home, worked his whole life. He now is on Social Security because he's retired. Property taxes done went up over 50% more. After he pays his property taxes, he ain't got but $40 left. He's got the Duke Energy bill that done went up. He's got the sewer, and we'll hear from MSD, that done went up. Water and sewer. He got everything going up. That don't include his medicine or getting anything to eat. And so then what happens? He'll lose his house in a foreclosure. We'll then come in with the land bank and then put his house in the land bank where you don't pay no taxes. Something's wrong with that. So I know it's going to be tough. We had a tough meeting earlier about safety, which is very important. The prosecutor's office, saying that, they got to have some additional funds, and I want to make sure that we have funds for safety. But we got to look at all that before we go doing stadiums and this and banks. Let's think about all these things not in a vacuum, but in a totality for me. And so, this is a tough one. But again, it's year by year. So I don't want to hear about, well, in 2 years, we won't be able to do economy in 2 years. Maybe the economy recover. Maybe sales tax will go, people be buying more. The good thing about us, we get to look at it on a year by year basis. And we got to just be as creative as possible. So I'm looking forward to being as creative as possible. We have differences of opinion. For me, right now, I'm not for raising taxes. MSD's coming up next. I'm not for raising anything. They're talking about another raise. They got a raise last year. I mean, people just cannot afford it. It's just getting out of hand. So I'm just trying to think, for me, affordability, from what I'm hearing, is the number one issue out here. I can't afford it. How do I afford it? And then we've heard from experts who saying people are leaving the county and going other places. And then some people are stuck here, can't go anywhere else, but don't have any money to help us keep this thing moving. So those are things that at least for me, I will continue to take into consideration. I've never been I'm for 30%. Bottom line, if we can keep a promise and do a deal with the team, we could do a deal with the taxpayers. So that's number one. And then number two, I wasn't definitely for the transfer tax. I do not support that, putting another burden, another tax on the homeowners. I don't know how the homeowners have become the bad guys. And again, affordability is not just new affordable homes where we're cutting those ribbons. It is also helping people, and I've said this from day one, affordability is helping grandma, grandpa, veteran, single mom, new homeowner, help them keep the house they already have. And that has to be part of the affordable conversation. So that's what I'm looking at. I know it's tough, but willing to continue to roll up our sleeves and try to get this done. And my thing is going to be asking myself, is this budget affordable for the taxpayers who have to fund it? Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just say broadly that we are in this situation because our revenues are flat. If our revenues were coming in at a regular clip, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But we're having the conversation because we rely heavily on sales tax, and sales tax has been relatively flat. And so we do not have the resources that we want to have, all three of us want to have, from what you've heard, to do all of the things that are presented to us because they're good programs, they're economic development programs. These things are important. We heard earlier today from the prosecutor, we heard from the courts, they're all asking for increases in the budget. And so it's a matter of weighing, what our obligations are to our constituents by way of safety and fair justice and all the things that the county does, child protective services, keeping kids safe, and the revenues we have available to us. And that's the challenge because our revenues are flat. And so the administrator has offered something that clearly does not have support, which is the transfer fee that will leave a gap in the proposal. And so now we're going to have to make up for those dollars, and that's something that we have to consider and think about because it does present a challenge. But we're trying to do this work in the context of what people are saying to us. The public hearings are extremely important. We're trying to keep things as affordable as possible for all the constituents, whether it's a sewer bill or it's the transfer fee or anything else that's being proposed. And so we've got some headwinds in Hamilton County. I just must say that I was in Columbus last week, and there is an initiative to eliminate property taxes on the ballot perhaps next year. Now, if that happens, that puts a big, huge hole in our budget, and we're really going to have some trouble. So while I understand that people don't want to pay taxes, I don't want to pay taxes either, but it is the price that we pay for the services that we have in this community by way particularly of safety, which is where the majority of our budget goes, and some of the other things that we have set as priorities. So I do want to follow up on one thing, Administrator Aludo. The last speaker talked about site readiness, Melissa Johnson, she's from the port, and we have tried to, and I talked to somebody in the audience earlier about like kind of who's to blame. We're always looking for who's to blame for all these things. And on this one, I do think it's fair to say that the state has reduced money that goes to brownfields and site readiness. And so the county has tried to step in and say, we need these jobs in our community. Somebody has to step in and do the remediation on some of these properties that are laying waste in Reading or in Camp Washington or wherever they are, because they're sometimes toxic sites, and the developer's not going to come in and develop on that site until it's cleaned up. And that's where government comes in, right? That's our job. And so if we were to, and I know your recommendation is to reduce the site readiness money, if they were to come forward with a project mid-budget, how would we respond to that?
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, so the site readiness program, as the board is aware, we started to fund that in our general fund operating budget several years ago. I think the very first year we had funded it around $2 million. And as sales tax began to plateau and expenditure pressures continued to creep up, the amount that we funded in that program has continued to drop. Last year it was $750,000. This year the recommendation is $375,000. So not to entirely reiterate your point, but the reason for the recommendation was that as we've continued to see strain in our operating budget, we have the site readiness program, which is a valuable program. You heard Ms. Johnson today talk about the different manufacturing successes that program has helped lead to. The issue in the operating budget is that we're putting something in the operating budget at an amount that we're not quite sure throughout the year what we're going to hear in terms of which project is available. Sometimes there may be a really big project that we want to fund. Sometimes there may not be much at all. We just don't know until we get into the year. So we put $375,000 in as a placeholder this year with the understanding and with the expectation that if something big were to come up, that the port could come back. We have a general fund reserve, and if the project had a return on investment that could be quantified, that the board would at that point in time have the ability to consider it. So that was the thought behind reducing it in the operating budget, was turning it into more of a capital item.
Okay, thank you. And the reserve sits at what, 14.5 per, roughly? Okay, and our target, by the way, is about 15, so we're not too far off. And Commissioner Reese, the money that you referred to, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is the revenues that would have been available for women's soccer and Sundance are in the reserve. Right, so they're being
those
counted
dollars
in the
will
reserve.
ultimately fall to the reserve. The monies for Sundance, NWSL, we projected higher interest earnings for this year. We will, as we end this year, we'll be able to tabulate exactly what those earnings are. We typically reconcile interest earnings in January, and they will ultimately fall to the general fund reserve. That's correct.
Thank you.
Can I ask about that real quick?
Let me go here?
Yeah, go
Let me
ahead.
here and
Yeah, and the reserves are lower than they normally have been, so we need to state that. But I am trying to meet the needs of all people. You know, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I can't have tunnel vision, and we can't just look at property owners and don't look at children's services and don't look at other areas that we need to cover. And as I said, we don't have but one pie. So what I'm going to implore the people that are here, and I've heard this as I've gotten older, believe half of what you hear and none of what you see. What I mean by that, I'm going to implore everyone who's here and listening, do your own research, because sometimes things sound a certain way and they're not true. Sometimes you accept stuff because of who I am. I don't want you to accept what I'm saying. I want you to do your research as it relates to the monies and the buckets of where the stadium comes from and where the children's levy comes from. They're all different levies. So just take your time and have your neighbors research what's really going on, because I care about the residents. I care what happens. I care about the property owners, but we have to care about everybody. We can't, we're not all things. We said all funds, but we have to give everybody a little piece of the pie. And so that's where I am on it. I needed to say that.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Yeah, thank you. And I had a question to follow up on the port piece. With what we were saying, we talked about that one piece, but there's still money in the budget. We fund the port operations. We then have a fund that we were putting $2 million in, and now we're going to do 375. But if they come back with a deal, we're looking at going into the reserves, is what you just said. And then they also have a contract paid to run the land bank. So I wanted to make sure in terms of giving them money to continue to operate as a port, that is still in the budget that you're recommending, right?
Yes, Commissioner. So the 2026 recommended budget has the port at $750,000. That's a reduction of $50,000 from 2025, but there is an allocation of $750,000 in the general fund budget. Correct.
Okay, and in addition to that, they also get funding to run the land bank. What I wanted to say, I know a lot of because I was like that before I got elected. I don't have all the information here. But what I will tell you, the people that I have talked to, they say, just believe in your own bill. You don't have to believe in a person. You get a bill every year. You're reading it. Believe in your bill. You're reading your bill as it relates to your sewer rates. It's on your bill. You're getting a bill on your property taxes. It's your bill. And I don't want to minimize the expertise of these real estate folks that do this every day. I was very impressed with some of the things they were talking about. They do it every day, all day, and they pay taxes, the real estate realtors, Real Estate Alliance, Realtist, and then the lady who does the mortgages, I thought was affordable mortgages. I mean, she really broke it down. And I don't want to diminish the expertise, because a lot of times we do stuff, they say, go get the experts. And here, this is the only time when we get to this subject matter, we don't go and talk to the experts. So I thought what she brought to the table, man, the way she said that, affordability, and it cuts off at a certain amount when you're trying to get a loan, and if you're $14 more, it's over. I mean, this stuff is real. So I would just encourage you, the things that people tell me is based on their bill. Maybe some of these hearings, I should encourage people, bring your bills. Because a lot of times we say, oh, you got your bill there. So all you got to do is look at your own bill. You don't have to believe us. Look at your bill, and you are the, when you have a major corporation, they have a thing called they have the stockholders meetings, and they have a room probably better, it's more money, so it's a little fancier. But even those corporations have what they call a stockholders meeting. And the people who own the stock, the people who's paying for the stock, they go in and tell them, we don't want you selling this, or we don't want you doing that. And maybe the chairman of the board and the board might disagree, but them stockholders get up and holler, we stockholders. And they get real nervous because they have to listen to the stockholders. And so you all are the stockholders, not us. And now we're at a budget. It's a stockholders meeting. So the only thing I encourage you to do is what you've been doing. You bring your own, but you telling us what you want to pay and what you don't want to pay. And let me just be clear. We all know we have to pay taxes. No, I've never said that. What I said was increasing. Okay? When we build something new, when developers build something new, they get what? Tax exempt. But grandma been living there for 35, 40 years and don't get tax exempt, gets a tax increase. And so we want to hear from you all. Do you want the increase or do you not want the increase? And it's up to you guys. So unfortunately, when we did the stadium this time, I wanted to take it to the taxpayers. And they said no. But when you don't take it to you guys, then you don't have a say. And just when we get done with this, there'll be another presentation to go up now on your sewer bill. So we hitting you on you're getting hit at the meat market. You're getting hit when you come home with your Duke Energy. I saw my Duke Energy. I almost had a heart attack. I said, turn all the lights on and let me sleep up under the bed. I mean, I can't afford this. It's going up. And all the reports are saying it. Affordability is the number one issue from what I'm hearing from you all. And so that's where I'm coming from. But I was only really just going to follow up with what the port piece is. They're still in there with operation money. They still will get paid to run the land bank. And then there'll still be some money left. And if a deal happens to come, then we'll look at it on a case-by-case basis. But that's nice. But I think more importantly is you holding up them bills. We got to try to help you pay these bills and keep these bills down. So that's what I know we're going to go into that next, and I'm just going to put it out there before they even present. I'm against raising any rates right now because everybody is struggling to try to make it. And I just think we need to hold our powder dry and hope this economy recovers. That's just my position, but we'll hear their presentation. Thank you.
Always very interesting here at the County Commission. I just want to say, by the way, because we're mixing up all of this conversation with the property tax, the Bengals deal, and now we're talking about the banks, now we got the general fund and the MSD. These, I don't know if anybody wants to hear it, but they're different funds. And some of them are restricted for certain things. And it was the experts that advised us to do the 4.5 PTR this year. So if we're going to listen to experts on this hand and not listen to experts on this hand, well, that's fine. But the experts were the ones advising us at the 4.5 PTR in order to not bankrupt that fund. I'm just going to put that out there, because if we're going to talk about experts, let's talk about all the experts.
Yeah. Well, the experts said if we went with that deal,
right now, Commissioner.
well, I want to rebuttal because we got to put the facts out.
That's fine, but I let you
Okay,
speak.
go ahead. When you get done, let me know.
Many times. So we're also going to hear that MSD is recommending no increase for residential ratepayers. So that's what we're about to hear from the MSD presentation. It's been stated differently by one of my colleagues, but that's what we're going to hear. That's what we have heard. And so I'm happy to get into the conversation. But Commissioner Reese, if you've got something else.
Yes, I do. The experts presented to us in the Bengals deal that if we went with that deal, we would not be able to do the 30%. And I said, that's not a good idea. I was outnumbered. The rate went up last year on the MSD. I voted no against it. And I did put out that anything in the future I would not be for. So I don't think it's different things. I think we handle it different based on who is bringing it before us. When the homeowners come, we always say we broke over here. But then when we have big deals, you just asked about the Port Authority, making sure they would have some money for deals. Then we said we would look into it. That's where we have a difference. Well, you asked the question about the Port Authority, and I'm just saying.
Clarifying question.
Well, okay, you clarified it, but I'm clarifying the answer was to the administrator. He didn't say we can't do it. He said if they bring something, we would go and look into the reserves. The other thing on the reserves was, I don't know how the $7 million is in reserve already, when if we had gotten Sundance this year, it would have had to be spent. If we had gotten the soccer, it would have had to be spent. And so I was just trying to say, hey, if we have that $7 million, can we use it? But now they're saying, oh, that's in reserve. It wouldn't have been in reserve if those two things would have come to fruition. So those are the things I know, I'm just telling you what the people be telling me, and I'm just bringing it forward. And what I'm saying is the Bengal deal, it is not off the table because it did include a homeowner component of 30% that was promised. And when we went behind those curtains and came out, the experts said, if you go with this deal, you will not be able to even consider 30%. And even knowing that information, it was passed. And I went against it. So now here we are, and now we're saying, well, the experts told us the experts said if we went with a different deal, we wouldn't have been at 4%. And the bottom line is your bill will be higher than your bill was last year. So that's what I'm putting forward.
That's okay. Well, why don't we?
Because you're not going to get 30%.
Why don't we hear from the experts on this one and see if your bills are going to go up related to MSD? So let's.
Well, I'm glad if they're not now.
Director is here. Thank you for being here. And you've got a presentation, then we'll get to public comment.
Yes, thank you, commissioners, and good evening. I also have a shortened presentation tonight, so I just want to start off by letting everyone know that the MSD budgets that we're presenting today, the operating and capital, we have full sets of information available on our website. So if you did not receive a link to that by email and you're interested, please let us know so that you can dig in and see all the information. And I also want to just start out by letting everyone know that we do have some folks here that brought we have information about our customer assistance program, our SBU program, but also just prepared to look at anyone's bills. So for those of you who have bills here, please, when I'm finished or while I'm speaking, feel free to go outside and have someone take a look at your bill, because what I am going to share with you is that despite the need for a revenue increase, our residential customers will not see any increase this year at all. So with that, I'm going to jump into the slides, and again, it's somewhat abbreviated since we've been presenting a few times already. But we are presenting both the 2026 operating and capital budgets for MSD, and these are the funds that allow our staff to carry out the core mission of collecting and treating wastewater and protecting public health and the environment. I'd like to remind everyone, we cover the entire most of Hamilton County with 9 treatment plants, 3,000 miles of sewers. And we have been working on this process of finalizing our budget for the last several months, and we have worked very closely with the county administration. And I do want to thank Holly Chrisman, and I believe Joe Graff is here tonight, just for their efforts with us, because this process starts early in August, and then we really work together, recognizing the affordability constraints and the county's financial advisors in terms of what we can ultimately recommend. So this year we really had to work together and sharpen our pencils to come to the budget that we're presenting. If you can go to the next slide. So our operating budget request, the total for 2026 is $255.9 million. This is broken down, as you can see there on the left side, by our divisions and by the three major categories of personnel, non-personnel, and debt service, which is the funds required to cover bonds and OWDA loan repayments that we have used to fund our capital program. The 2026 budget does reflect a 6.3 increase over the 2025 budget. The year prior, so in 2025, we did keep our budget very low, despite that year and again this year, just seeing nationwide inflationary increases that were much higher than what we were able to increase the budget for. So we continue to face rising labor costs, energy costs, materials, supplies, that are really driven by market conditions. And in order to provide the same level of service to our community, we are facing those pressures and those increases in our budget. If you go to the next slide, I just want to quickly touch on what's driving the increases in our operating budget. The first being on the personnel side. So MSD has a little over 650 employees on its TO. And those costs have increased this year by about $8 million. That is no increases in the level of staffing, so just keeping things status quo. We are experiencing the increase just related to the cost of living adjustments that were required by union negotiations. Our staff of that number, 650, we have over 550 union employees. So when they have negotiated those increases, which are really in line with the skilled labor that they provide for our industrial plants, that those are being seen in that budget increase for personnel. And with that increase in personnel, we really had to look very closely at our non-personnel budget and limit any increases to every extent possible, despite a lot of needs and desires to provide additional services to our customers. And on the non-personnel side, we are reflecting just a very small increase of $4 million from 2025. And this is driven by a few main categories, one being higher costs of power. I talked a lot about this in the prior meetings, but generally speaking, our treatment plants, we pay for both the generation of power and the capacity, and those costs have gone up dramatically. We have higher utility costs. We have experienced significant increase in supplies and equipments due to tariffs. And those ongoing uncertainties also just are passed on in contractual increases. We have increased maintenance needs due to our aging infrastructure, and we also have required cybersecurity and technology upgrades due to some changes in state law that have required us to pay for additional cybersecurity measures for our facilities. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. I just also want to share that the sewer backup program, this is a portion of our operating budget for 2026. We are recommending no changes to the budget. You can see there the funding that has been requested, the $8.8 million, that again, that's the same as 2025. This funds all aspects of the program, including the response and investigations, cleaning for eligible properties, payment of damage claims, and the prevention program, which is the program where we are working with customers that have had multiple capacity-related backups to protect them from future backups. There's a significant portion of the cost going to the prevention program, and to date, this year, as of the end of October, we had installed protection solutions at 35 more properties. That brings our total under the program to about 1,430 properties that are protected through the SBU program. So again, feel that that funding is sufficient unless we have unusual weather a given year in which we would forecast that and come back to the board. So you can advance to the next slide. So I'm going to pivot to our capital budget and just want to reiterate that the capital budget is for MSD. It is a balancing act of our needs for an aging sewer system. The sewer system built, in some cases, our sewers are 200 years old, so 100 to 200-year-old sewer system, aging treatment plants, along with our federally mandated consent decree work, which is addressing the overflows that occur during wet weather. The federal consent decree is an unfunded mandate, and it requires us to bring this system that was constructed prior to the requirements of the Clean Water Act into compliance. And we've been, as you know, doing this over decades. And just this year, we got approval to proceed with the next 10 years of the program. And that program now has allowed us to define the capital projects a bit more clearly for the next 5 years, and that's what is presented in the capital budget. So I just shared up there the accomplishments through to date since we've started the program, and the next phase we're going to be proceeding with 7 major projects over the next 10 years and reducing overflows by another about 1.5 billion gallons annually when that work is completed. If you go to the next slide, I want to talk specifically about the 2026 capital budget request. And this, again, reflects that balance of both the asset management work and the wet weather improvement work. We are pleased this year that with the certainty we have on the Phase 2B projects, we were able to advance a few of the asset management projects that had been deferred in prior years. The total capital budget request is $153.6 million. The appropriation upon passage is that $84.4 million amount. And as you may recall, when the board approves the capital budget, there are funds that are appropriated at that time to allow us to continue planning and design work on specific projects, and funds are capital allowances that allow us to perform a lot of the proactive work and upkeep of our sewers and our treatment plants that we do year-round. It also allows us to address emergencies when they arise. And then any of the large capital projects that are proceeding to construction, that budget is included. That's the $69 million, but we do come back to the board for approval of those projects and appropriation throughout the year. You can proceed to the next slide. And then the 5-year capital program is included in our request. However, the board does not approve any of the funding for the 5-year. This is for planning purposes. And this outlines our projected capital needs over the next 5 years. If you look at the totality of our capital budget, we are currently managing over $2 billion of projects. And so we continuously are working through a prioritization of projects that are needed for the sewer system and for the treatment plants, in addition to the regulatory requirements, and balancing those projects to present the annual capital budget. So while we have projected totals and projects for the years 2027 through 2030, those are subject to change as we continue to look at projects and do the engineering work and determine those costs. You can see, though, the years are, relatively similar until you get to 2030. 2030 is when we will have 2 of the major projects that are part of our Phase 2B plan at our large treatment plants. So at the Mill Creek plant and the Little Miami plant, we have the next phase of large projects proceeding and getting funding in 2030. So that's why you see a significant increase there. But we will talk about the funding available for some of the capital projects through the OWDA, the State Revolving Loan Program. So, that has helped us leverage the the needed costs for these projects over the years. And if you go to the next slide, I think I'm going to go into the rates, which I know is, where there's a lot of interest in hearing about the changes that are proposed for 2026. So our rates are designed to recover the costs of the services that are provided to our customers. So rates are developed using financial consultants that perform this work. This is similar to all utilities. So we look at factors and the cost to run the treatment plants, the cost to maintain the sewers, in addition to costs like administration and billing and staffing needs that have to be reflected in the cost of service that we're providing to each of our customers. The way MSD's bills are structured, they are, everyone has a base charge and then a commodity charge or a consumption charge that is based on the total usage of water for the property. And what we completed this year was a cost of service study to really take a closer look at some of the information that we spent time working on through the efforts in the wet weather impervious surface charge. And we determined that the cost of service could be adjusted to account for changes in our system related to the unbilled flow that comes to us. So the way the rates are designed, one of the factors that is included is something called I&I, which just stands for inflow and infiltration. There are certain parts of our system where this is small amounts of inflow and infiltration that can come in through cracks in pipes and other unintended ways that water can get in. And then, of course, having a combined sewer system, we also take in a lot of stormwater as designed into our system. And so since our customers are not billed directly for the stormwater, we do account for that stormwater across the entire system, across the rates through what is called the I&I. And that is a factor that has been applied historically in our rate structure on a factor of more heavily weighted toward the customer and not to the volume. So it was 75%, 25%. And we looked closer at this and again adjusted it based on information that we've learned about our system, a lot of upgrades to the system that we have performed, and comparing that to industry guidelines have proposed that we adjust that assumption to switch it to a 43% customer and 55% volume charge. What this means in terms of how the rates are actually designed is that we will make an adjustment on the consumption or the capacity charge to reduce the overall charge and eliminate having a higher volume discount or a declining block rate. I'll get to that in just a minute, but I just want to explain a little bit more of, as far as what is recommended this year. So again, this is a adjustment to the base level assumptions that we set our rates by. At the same time, our financial advisors and the county's financial advisors and the experts in this have looked at the 2026 operating and capital budgets and the projected budgets for the next 5-10 years. And the recommendation is that MSD needs to increase revenue by 4.5%. So 4.5% additional revenue to cover the costs and the expenditures that we're seeing. However, we are not recommending an across-the-board 4.5% increase. In years past, we have. So every one and every charge was increased 4.5%. But this year, we are able to increase our revenue without increasing everyone's bill or everyone's rate. And the way we're doing that is, so we are not increasing the minimum base charge. We are not increasing the surcharge. We are not increasing industrial pretreatment charges. Those will all remain the same as they were in 2025. But the consumption charge is proposed to transition from its current two-tier structure to a single charge. And currently the two-tier structure, I think it'll help if we go to the next slide, sorry. So I'm referring to on the right side of this slide here, the sewer consumption charge is for all of the usage above the minimum base charge. And currently any usage over 3 CCF to 50 CCF is charged at a rate of 6.471 per CCF. CCF is just another measure for the volume of water. 1 CCF is equivalent to about 750 gallons of water. So, but just so you know, it's just a measure that is used in the water industry. So the current rate for the first volume over the base charge is that 6.471. And then if you use a larger amount of water, a greater volume over 50, it actually reduces currently. The proposed adjustment will eliminate that two-tier system and have one single rate for all volume used over that 3 CCF. And as you can see, it is slightly lower than the current first tier of 6.4. So what that means, again, is that customers who do not use more than 50 CCF will see no increase. The average residential customer uses about 3 to 5 CCF a month. So we talked last time, and I have, again, some example bills, but a family of 4, both myself, Jenny Richmond, we're both in about the 5 CCF range in terms of our monthly usage. So even a larger family, there are, as a class, our residential customers do not exceed that volume. So we can say confidently that residential customers will, if they use less than the 3 CCF, they are going to continue to pay the base charge, which for residential customers is typically that $43. And if they use slightly more than 3 CCF, as many of us do, they will actually see a very, very negligible decrease due to that adjustment in the first tier. It is our commercial and industrial customers this year that are going to feel the increase, and that increase is really going to depend entirely on their volume of water usage per month. So it really is difficult to classify, the level of increase based on the type of operation, because it really will vary, even, by restaurant, by institution, by, we have some industrial customers that may use very large volumes of water. However, they may use up that water in their product, for example, and therefore they have a deduct meter and they don't pay a very large volume of water. So it's a real challenge for us to provide a blanket categorization of what each customer is going to experience. However, our financial consultants, have said that the increase could be as high as 15% for some of those high volume industrial users. So yeah, you can just leave it on that slide, because I think what I wanted to do is just shift back to, how we designed this adjustment for this year. And again, we performed a cost of service study, which is not something that we do every year. This is something that is done, to really recognize changes in the system, to make sure that our revenue is established, equitably, and that we're charging our customers in relation to the cost of providing them service. So we went through that effort, and that is where we identified that we had this older assumption in the INI, and that could be updated. So the goal of this cost of service study was to look at whether there was adjustments that could be made or needed to be made to make sure our rates were equitable. But it's also to, anytime we're designing or any changes to the rates, the goal is to provide system-wide stability as well. So one of the things about our rates that has been mentioned, and I know we're going to hear from our some of the speakers in a bit, is about our base charge. So as you can see there, regardless of the volume of water you use in a month, you will be paying a base charge. And our minimum base charge based on the meter size is that $43. So our cost of service study does not support a reduction in that at this time. And that is really given that we were focused on adjusting the rates for that assumption in the INI. And if we were to, in addition, look at reducing the base charge, that would put an even greater burden and perhaps greater, at least as it's indicated currently, burden on our commercial industrial customers than what is shown as needed to recover from those customers. So, you know, we're showing that we are bringing things up to an equitable basis with this change, and reducing that base charge anymore would just shift even more costs to those other customers, and potentially put it out of balance with what we should be charging them. And then the final thing about setting rates and the need for or the desire for a rate charge or a base charge is that it provides stability, and that is really important when you are going to the bond market, and given the capital program that we have to continue to deliver, you know, having that type of a rate structure is currently recommended, and having that stability in our rates. So with that, I think I know I've reached the end of my slides, and again, I know I rushed through some of the budget stuff I covered the first time, so happy to answer questions now or after we hear comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we want to go to comments to make sure we're hearing from the public. So thank you for the presentation. Our first speaker is Larry Falcon. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Larry Falcon. I'm with the Sierra Club Miami Group. Here's my sewer bill. It's too high. But I'm not just here to complain about it. I'm here to offer solutions. MSD has proposed to you to start charging for runoff from large parking lots and other large paved surfaces. They wrote that to you in May. They briefed you on it in July, but it's not in their budget. And if we just put it in their budget and get started on starting to charge for large amounts of stormwater getting into their system, what Director Christie just called unbilled flow. Why am I paying so much on my sewer bill when they've got unbilled flow and they know who it's coming from and they're not sending those people a bill? They should be. So adopt the large parking lot runoff charge. That's not their name for it. That's my name for it. But the large parking lot runoff charge is a new source of revenue from people who are putting their water into the sewers and not paying a dime. They're all large landowners. They have at least 2 acres of pavement. So they're, you know, we're not talking about mom and pop. We're talking about big landowners that are paying nothing, and I'm subsidizing them, and that's not the way it should be. So breaking even this year for homeowners is better than a rate increase, but it's not good enough because we're paying twice as much as we should be. I have a petition here with over 100 signatures on it. The petition to the Hamilton County Commissioners. The Metropolitan Sewer District has proposed a series of changes that would incentivize the use of stormwater best management practices and make MSD's rate structure more fair. I believe that we should manage more rainwater where it falls so we don't have to treat it like sewage. I believe that it's wrong to force residential and low-income ratepayers to subsidize large landowners. Please adopt these proposals, and I'll give those to the clerk so that she can distribute them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Florence Miller.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I am Florence Miller, a member of CUFA, Communities United for Action. MSD ratepayers have suffered from the unfair and inequitable sewer rate structure and lack of assistance for low-income families to keep their water on, because if you don't pay your sewer bill, your water is going to be shut off. Fair rate affordability is just and required for the MSD 2026 budget now. So CUFA is like recommending that you reduce the base rate from 3 CCFs to 2 CCFs for residential ratepayers. Many residents living alone are overcharged for their sewer and as a result of the current rate structure, of which I am one of those. Also, implement the impervious surface fee to account for the cost of treating stormwater runoff entering the sewer system from large property owners, like they've said, parking lots that, you know, are large, and these people are not even paying a sewer bill. Also, as commissioners, support the state legislatures to allow for the expansion of the customer assistance program to all low-income ratepayers, including renters who pay their own bill, and for temporary hardship assistance. These changes may be difficult for some ratepayers who have enjoyed the benefit of the inequities in the current rate structure, but now is the time for everyone to pay their fair share of the cost to maintain and improve our sewer system. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a document here that has CUFA sewer rate recommendation and also, and also the MSD, what they are doing.
Thank you. Please give it to the clerk. Our next speaker is David Behrens. Mm-hmm.
So I'm here on behalf of CUFA, Communities United for Action, and I'm advocating for the impervious surface fee. We at CUFA feel that if MSD implemented the impervious surface fee, that would more fairly distribute the costs and at the same time increase their revenue. In 2023, MSD hired consultants that told them that an impervious surface fee was feasible. They proposed in a memo to have a version of the impervious surface fee in May of this year, and in July of this year they even presented the proposal to you, the commissioners. But now in December there is no impervious surface fee in their budget. Over the last 9 years, MSD has had many excuses and reasons for not having an impervious surface fee. One of those reasons is that it's just too complex because they have 10 billing entities and they just can't make it work. Well, there are many cities in the tri-state area that have an impervious surface fee. For example, Akron, which is actually smaller than Cincinnati, they have 6 billing entities, and they have impervious surface fee. Cleveland, which is about twice the size of Cincinnati, they have over 30 billing entities with impervious surface fees. So many other cities like Dayton, Columbus, Covington, and Kentucky, and Florence, they all have impervious surface fees. So we really feel that if all these other cities can do it, certainly MSD can do it here. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Marie Kokoschis. Did I say it right, Marie?
That was
Is it Kokoschis? I always say it incorrectly.
The Grinch, right.
I apologize. Pronounce it for us.
Precocious. Rhymes with precocious.
Oh, I was right. Okay.
Yes, you're
Thank
close.
you.
So I'm here representing, not the Grinch, but I'm here representing the Miami group of the Sierra Club. And I know I sound like a broken record. We want the impervious surface fee, and we want it in the budget. We feel that it won't happen if it's not in the budget. And I served on the impervious surface task force that you all put together, and there was a consensus at that meeting that this is the gold standard. The impervious surface fee is the gold standard for dealing with stormwater. MSD has a stormwater problem. It comes in through the storms that we have. We have a combined system. It goes into the sewer system and it gets treated. That doesn't need to happen. So we're thankful that there's other approaches that MSD has presented to us and to you, but we believe that the gold standard is the impervious surface fee, and we would like you to put it in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jean Nightingale.
Good evening. Jean Nightingale. I'm on the executive committee of the Sierra Club Miami Group, and that's also a friend of CUFA, the Communities United for Action. And with the Sierra Club's mission to protect the environment, we're advocating locally for a local culture in which all communities benefit from the same degree of protection from harm. We've joined the efforts with CUFA to urge the adoption of the impervious surface fee as the best way to reduce sewer backups and to provide relief for families who are, especially low-income families. I don't know if you heard about the podcast that WVXU has put out, Backed Up. It's all about our problem. It's gone viral throughout this country. It even showed up on Stephen Colbert's show, so that hits a lot of people. And it's all about the decades of mismanagement of Cincinnati's sewer system. So here's what it says. Here's what we heard on the Stephen Colbert report. There's something wrong with the plumbing in Cincinnati. Sewage is bubbling up in our basements and pouring into our waterways. Climate change is making it worse, but the powers that be can't seem to agree on how to fix it. So that's why we're here today, to urge the powers that be to look hard at the budget options and find a way to fix the problem. MSD supports this fix. The commissioners should now endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Erica Jaska.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Erica Jaska, and I'm an environmental engineer and member of the Sierra Club. As you've heard tonight, too many sewer backups are occurring, backing up into homes and overflowing into rivers and streams. At the same time, too many people can't afford their sewer bills. And meanwhile, the impervious surface charge has been in talks for over 9 years now. In the May MSD memo, a phased ISF approach, starting with the first 100 parcels over 6 acres was proposed, showing the potential of this idea. But of course, we were bummed to see that was not part of this budget. So now is the time to take action and add it to the budget in order to reduce stormwater backups and making sewer bills more affordable. So I'd like to voice my support in modifying MSD's proposed budget as recommended by both CUFA and the Sierra Club.
Thank you. That is the last card I have for speakers on this issue. I hope that is correct. If you want to fill out a speaker's card, or just come forward and then fill a card out after you speak, you've got the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes.
My name's Kathleen. I live in Oakley. Doesn't make any difference. We flood a lot. Sewage comes up a lot. But my question is, the impervious thing seems like a no-brainer to me. Why do homeowners have to continue supporting everything? Why are we letting them why are they using something for free? You don't get anything for free. So I think that we should go ahead after 9 years of messing around with this. Why aren't they paying their fair share? Can anybody answer that question for me? Why did that get squashed?
Thank you. And I am going to ask you to fill out a speaker's card if you don't mind. I think they're out. Kevin, are they out in the hallway? Yeah, thank you. I was going to actually ask Director Christie if you could provide us with an update regarding the impervious surface work that's been going on. I know the budget reflects some progress here, but it is not in direct relationship to impervious surface fees. So help us understand what the status is there.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So, and I do think it's worth clarifying. So there were efforts over, a couple years ago, several years ago, with a stakeholder group, and some of the folks you heard from today were participated in that. Those efforts were looking at a change in our rate structure to bifurcate our rates, and instead of what I was showing you earlier, we would have rates based on both the meter size and usage, and then an impervious surface charge. So this was a pretty extensive effort, and it would, change the sewer system revenue that is, used to fund over 90% of our operations come directly from those charges. That effort, went on for quite some time, but we had multiple stakeholders involved in that, and there were a few problems or a few things, at the end of that. It was a feasibility study. It was not taken to a level of an implementation plan. However, before proceeding further, there was a lot of desire to get feedback from the stakeholders, and there was not consensus from all of the stakeholders. So we had folks there representing the business community and the chamber and some of our educational institutions, and there were a lot of concerns that were expressed, that really limited the ability to reach a consensus on moving forward. There were also challenges identified with that type of a rate structure that relied on the impervious surface charge in addition to, that bifurcated our rates. I also want to point out that, without getting into the level of detail as to why there were challenges and where some of that lack of consensus fell, one of the important things to point out is that MSD, we are a wastewater utility. So there's a lot of mention of other sewer districts or other utilities that have impervious surface charges, and that is true. However, I think everyone that I've heard mentioned to date is a wastewater utility and a stormwater utility, meaning they are responsible for the collection of stormwater from the right-of-way, from public spaces, and MSD is not. MSD does get stormwater into a combined system, but we are not the stormwater utility. And if you live in the city of Cincinnati, you have a stormwater utility and you pay an impervious surface fee, essentially. You pay a fee that is based on an impervious area to the city of Cincinnati stormwater utility. If you live outside the city of Cincinnati, you pay a fee for your stormwater, probably to either to the county, and then there's a few other jurisdictions depending on where you live. So yes, we have impervious surface fees in this area. MSD is not the entity that charges that. So that's probably as far as we want to go into the weeds of that. But we do, however, have stormwater in our system. We do account for that stormwater when we design our rates, which is what I was explaining, that we look at the customers and there are assumptions made as far as what comes to us from those properties, what those properties, how much they should pay. And there are a lot of contributions of stormwater from residential properties as well as some of the large impervious areas. So it is that factor of I&I that is already built into our rate structure so that we aren't ignoring that when we charge our customers. So nobody's getting what I would consider, a free ride that is part of what you're paying for. It's just not charged based on an impervious area fee. So very quickly want to just mention that we did suggest a program that we want to pursue as a pilot. We have not abandoned that. We are still really trying to define that and want to come to the board and present that. That pilot would really not be a change to our rate structure. It's not about bringing in, large amounts of revenue and providing relief to other customers. It's about working with our largest properties in the combined sewer area only that have large impervious areas to determine whether or not they have large amounts of stormwater coming to the combined system. So we would work directly with them to understand what is coming to the system, what might be being detained on site, what improvements they could potentially make on their site to reduce the stormwater. So that pilot, we haven't really branded it, doesn't technically have a name, but we are working and we intend to come back to the board with that proposal in early 26. But again, that's a program like some of the other charges we have. We would charge customers. That is not, that's on top of the rate structure we already have. So like our high strength customers that pay a surcharge, or our industrial customers pay another charge. This would be an additional charge. It's not going to, change our rate structure, if you will.
Okay.
Thank you.
So more to come. As you say, I mean, it's been a long time. And so I, for one, am anxious to get started on that because I think there was consensus about encouraging property owners that are contributing a lot of stormwater into the system, encouraging them to take action to plant trees or put in retention basins or do something to try to keep and incentivize that. That was, I think there was consensus on that. There wasn't consensus on other things, and I think we need to acknowledge that. So at least that's a piece of progress related to the affordability task force that was set up in some of those recommendations. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear because I too remember seeing that memo about a pilot program. So thank you for the clarity on that. Commissioner Summer-Odumas.
Yeah, just a couple comments. Can you tell the audience where the funding comes from for MSD to do what they need to do? We're talking about millions and billions. And so where does the funding come from? I want people to be very clear. The general fund has nothing to do with this. The direct services for our residents has nothing to do with this pot of money. So where does your money come from?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. That's correct. We are a ratepayer-funded utility, meaning everything we presented today in terms of our budget comes from our ratepayers. So those bills we are mentioning and those rates that we set fund the operations. We do, continually look for ways to help with financing. There is a state, revolving loan program that uses some federal and state dollars to provide those loans to allow us to finance capital projects at a better, cost overall in terms of the repayment. But that's not free money. It's, it is not money that is being given to us. It just helps with the financing.
Thanks.
Yes.
And also, I was adamant about no increase, and so for our ratepayers, and you worked closely with our staff to try to see how we could make that happen. So at least for 2026, there's no rate increase. I'm really excited about that. And also, we've come a long way, I believe, and I'm glad that we recognize the inequities of the commercial district and that they need to pay their fair share, and that will allow them to do that. So that's all I had.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Yes, thank you. Can you explain, because when I look at, for me, it's the whole county, and you mentioned a 15%. Is that an increase? Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, so the change that we are making to the rates, again, is only that change in that volume of water usage, that adjustment that will impact what our commercial and industrial customers pay typically. So it is all dependent on how much water a customer uses, whether or not they will see that increase. That is the high end of what we expect a industrial customer that uses a high volume of water to see in terms of an increase in their bill. Residential customers, based on their level of water usage, should see 0% increase. So, and then many of our commercial customers, industrial customers, will see a variation between there again, and it varies based on their usage.
So the 15% you mentioned increase
Correct.
would be some other rate customers. But the thing that got me, commercial and industrial, of course, I'm sure they wouldn't want to have an increase either. But then you mentioned something that you said restaurants, these restaurants are suffering. So are they currently not paying something, restaurants, and now they will have a 15% increase, or how does that work? You mentioned restaurants, small businesses, in addition to the, I guess they fall under commercial, because when you think commercial, you're thinking the big, but you mentioned restaurants and small businesses.
Yeah, so the challenge with us is I'm making generalizations, but the way our rates are structured is they don't actually apply to you based on your type of business. So it is all based on the size of the meter that serves your property. So again, residential customers all have pretty small water meter, and that's your water meter because you're not going to use that much. And your larger properties that use a lot of water have larger meters serving them. And then your rate that you're paying for the volume of water that's used. So I'm making generalizations about what we could expect a customer to see in terms of that increase. Again, no one will see, you will not see any increase regardless of whether you're a restaurant, small business owner, or a residential customer, unless you use over 50 CCF a month. And I can tell you again, there's no residential customers that are using that much water a month. However, there are some businesses, and it just depends on the type of business, how many people come in and frequent them, whether they're using water in their operations, that will see an increase. And we expect it to vary from about a 0% increase in their current bill to 15%. So that's where that 15% is coming from. That's kind of the high end of what we might expect someone to see this year. And that's just an increase in their current sewer bill. And you reminded me that I just wanted to mention that our customers get a bill that includes their water bill and their sewer bill, includes their water charge and their sewer. For most customers, that's Greater Cincinnati Water Works. There's a few other entities. And there is a rate increase on the water side for residential customers. So just, that's not what we're talking about today. That's, approved by the city, but just so folks know, there is a, if they're seeing an increase on the bottom line, that could be because there's a small increase on the waterworks side of the bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because we do this, and then, we helped a lot of restaurants stay in business, and it's really rough on them right now.
Yeah.
And so, them to absorb up to potentially a 15%, and we haven't really brought them in, or maybe you have talked to them as stakeholders, but this is my first time hearing of it. So when I say, no increase, I'm looking at no increase. And I just wanted to bring that up. The other thing we had talked about, are these rates, would these be locked in? Because we were flat for many years before I got here. But I think in one of our last presentations, you indicated locked here, but maybe going up. And would this potentially put us in a position of going up in the future?
Yes, so this, the financial analysis and the financial advisors have indicated again that there is a need for revenue increase for 2026 of that 4.5%. But they do indicate that will, that will be needed again the following year and for future years. So none of that is locked in or determined, but there is an expectation given the costs of the capital program, primarily the consent decree projects, that we will continue to see increases in future years.
Thank you.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. All right, that concludes our hearing. Thank you all for being here. Very important that we hear from the public. I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Adumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
Thank you.